Joining us now, CNN Global Affairs analyst Kim Dozier and Jill Dougherty, former CNN Moscow bureau chief and author. We will talk about that later in just a bit. But Kim, first, can we just take a step back and look at the clear, unequivocal reversal of everything the United States has stood for when it comes to Russia and its relationship with Russia, and now vis-a-vis Ukraine? They wouldn't even agree to a resolution that supports Ukraine. What are we seeing here?
Yeah, at the UN, the U.S. voted with Russia, Belarus, and Sudan against the rest of the UN members who were condemning Russia's aggression in Ukraine. So it is this through the looking glass universe. And now the U.S. is saying you have to pay us back for money the Biden administration pledged with future earnings, not just from your rare earth minerals, but from just about all of Ukraine's output, to the tune of Ukraine paying back $500 billion. I'm going to do a Daniel Dale style fact check here for a minute. The U.S. has pledged $183 billion and has only given out about half of that. The EU has pledged, between the EU, Norway, and UK, they've pledged $207 billion and given out $166 billion. So they're way ahead of us. And Ukraine being asked to pay this back to the U.S., the EU isn't asking Ukraine to pay anything back.
Yeah, and some of that money, of course, goes back to U.S. companies who are supplying the weapons and the ammunition. Jill, now to you. You are literally writing the book on Russia. We know that the leadership is celebrating what has been a gift to them, from the words of Donald Trump blaming Ukraine for starting the war when indeed Russia was the one that started this war. But what might Putin do with this sort of new goodwill from an American president?
Well, I think what he wants is a restoration of Russia and himself back at the table, Russia being a decider in the world, the isolation that Russia was in after it invaded Ukraine over. They're even talking about economic relationship restored with the United States. And I should add, at the very time that Russia has been nationalizing Western companies, they are now talking about investment. So I think it's a bigger picture. You know, Ukraine is really important. Ukraine is something that President Putin is fixated on and has been for a long time. But I think on top of that, the most important thing to him is this relationship with the United States and the role of Russia in the world. And I think we could talk about this more, but we should watch what Russia is doing with China, because at the very moment that all of this was going on at the UN, Putin was talking with President Xi of China, and they're saying our no limits partnership continues. It's for a long time. And notably, they said no other party can interfere in that relationship. And that means the United States, because if charitably, if you look at what Trump is doing, what they're trying to do is, it appears, pull Russia toward the United States, and then as a move against China. But I think it goes way beyond that. And, you know, it's obviously very controversial.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people look at it as like Putin is former KGB. He plays chess, not checkers, and it's questionable as to what game Donald Trump is playing at this point. I do want to go to this remarkable moment between President Trump and Emmanuel Macron when he basically, you know, fact-checked Donald Trump in real time on the world stage. Take a listen.
Europe is loaning the money to Ukraine. They get their money back.
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total effort, and it was through, like the US, loans, guarantee, grants, and we provided real money. To be clear,
if you believe that, it's okay with me.
Kim, can you just talk about this moment? I mean, he reaches over and almost like pats him on the knee, like, "No, you're incorrect."
Yeah, it's kind of like you do with a grandfather whose hearing aids aren't working properly, and you're like, you didn't quite hear that right. The fact of the matter is, the European loans, the collateral on them is the proceeds of the frozen Russian assets that Europe holds. but Ukraine still has to pay those loans back. Same goes for the G7 loans. It's just amazing. It feels like Macron is having to fact check the misinformation without calling it that, because we all know how triggering that would be for for Trump.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what happened when Zelensky said that Trump was living in a disinformation space, and suddenly Trump is calling him a dictator. Jill, I am curious, just quickly here, when it comes to this sort of conversation, we have seen Donald Trump lash out. What do you make of what might happen to Macron after that situation that played out in front of everybody?
Well, Macron goes back to France, and the allies right now, the EU, all of Europe is essentially, most of Europe, except for Hungary, is trying to unite to literally deal with a world in which the United States is no longer a guarantor or maybe even a participant in anything dealing with European security. And that is stunning. And it's stunning in the speed with which it's happening. So the Europeans are very, very worried. And that was why Macron came here. By the way, the UK Prime Minister will be here, Keith Starmer. He'll be here, I think it's on Thursday. And they are all trying to convince President Trump that even if President Trump is trying to negotiate, let's again say this is all part of negotiations, it's very dangerous when you really do appear to be siding with one side, and that is Vladimir Putin. So it's a full court press. And then also trying to figure out how they protect Ukraine and protect European security.
Yeah, this might bring Europe together in a way we have not seen before, a much stronger alliance there. That might be part of for Europe, a silver lining. Jill Dougherty, Kim Dozier, it is always such a great pleasure to be able to talk to you. Appreciate you both.